Hello, this is Edgin Montiel, and this is another recording for Dr. Foley's 1503 at UCCS, the Introduction to Engineering Design. And this video is going to be going over Lesson 3 drawings in SolidWorks, and then describing what's going to be needed for Dr. Foley's assignment to turn it in. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is get some files together all in one folder for this assignment. Because previously, if you have followed the other videos and completed the previous SolidWorks tutorials, you should have a front of your camera. So from the Dr. Foley's instructions, we save this as your last name underscore camera underscore step 1, or it's just the camera front that you make from the SolidWorks lesson 1 parts. We also are going to need the back of our camera, which we make from the SolidWorks tutorial lesson 2 assemblies. And then we're going to need the assembly file that we made from that tutorial as well. So you want to make sure all 3 of those files are together in one folder and that you have them all open in SolidWorks, because we're just going to go ahead and save to this folder the additional things that we need for this assignment. And as you saw, what I was doing there was just opening up each file here in SolidWorks. So now that I have all of these open, we can start the tutorial, which again, you go to this little question mark, we can go to tutorials, and we're still on the Getting Started tab here, and we're going to do Lesson 3 drawings. Now in this Lesson 3 drawings tutorial, it's ultimately going to show us how to make the 3-view drawings of any parts or assemblies that we make. When we do a drawing, it's on this pre-formatted or kind of pre-formatted sheet here, but the idea is that we can format it further to our scholastic and business professional needs. So ultimately we could just like put our contact information and our business information preset on our drawing papers. That way we're not wasting time having to put that information every time we create a drawing. So what it's going to have us do is we're just going to click File and go to New. So you could either create a new document from here, or equivalently, you could just click the little blank paper here to get to the new. So there's this Novice button here, so you could either look at this new document window this way, or you could look at it the advanced way. The instructions over here are starting to talk about it in the advanced way, so I'm going to look at it that way as well. So it wants me to click on drawing, and then I hit OK. So this is going to start a new drawing. This is where you're going to want to decide what size of paper that you want to use. So it has all of the dimensions of the paper here. I imagine each pace of employment or assignment based on what your needs are going to describe what size paper you need. If you're not sure what size paper, I would suggest perhaps just doing what makes sense. So if you have a very simple part with very little geometry and very little dimensions, you probably wouldn't want to put it on this giant paper that's like 1 meter by 1 meter. So it would make more sense to put that on a very smaller piece of paper. Just to kind of pick something in the middle here, I'm going to pick this A3. But again, depending on whatever you're drawing here, is what size of paper that you're going to want to pick. And then ultimately, depending on what printers you have access to, you may not have a printer that can print on this size paper anyway, so you can always use this scale feature when you're going to print it so that it fits on the printer size paper that you have anyway. So the size of it doesn't matter a whole lot, but just other than don't pick something completely obtuse. So I'm going to pick this A3 and then hit OK, and that's going to load the sketch paper here for me. And just like in the instructions or the tutorial here, I'm going to go ahead and just close this model view because we're going to make a preset of paper first. Because again, we want to fill out some of this information so that way whenever I want to make a drawing of anything, all of this is already pre-filled out for me and I don't have to do it again. So the standard sheet, we hit OK, and then we click that X to close that. So I hit next on my annotations here. So these instructions here do go into detail about the benefits of doing some of these features that it's going to show you how to do with the sheets. But ultimately, you can add additional sheets, and it tells you about how it saves the file directories and stuff like that. Definitely, if you are going to be required to make drawings on a regular basis, you're going to want to make sure you come and do this lesson and read through it in its entirety, because I'm not going to sit here and read it to you guys, so definitely make sure you read through it if you need to fully understand everything more than just a kind of a crash course overview of it. But I'm just going to keep trucking along with the instructions here, because what we're going to do is we're going to edit this sheet as like a template. So I'm going to right click on it, and by right clicking on it, I can go to Edit Sheet Format, and when I do that, you can see how it changed color, and now even this area down here is blue. Then I can go to the annotation bar up here and click on this little note button. And then I'm going to use my middle mouse button to scroll in to get to this field over here, where I could use my left click to draw and drag, left click and hold to drag this little box, which will give me this little text box, which I can now type into to put my name or my company information, and I can change that to all these fields. I also have the ability to change the size, the positioning, bold, underline, stuff like that, even the color. But now I'm done typing in what I want there, so I am just going to go ahead and click my little check mark here to be done with the note tool. So now I can see I wrote UCCS on there, and similarly, I can come and fill all these fields out. Then the SolidWorks wants to show me this button, this Zoom Fit. So I just want to remind everybody that if you can't find a button on SolidWorks, you can always click on the orange button that's squared out here in the tutorial, and it'll start blinking in SolidWorks to show you where it is so that you can click on it over here. And what this Zoom to Fit button does is just makes the image take up the whole screen here. So it kind of zoomed back out for me. And then we can right click anywhere on the drawing sheet again and go to Edit Sheet again, which seems counterintuitive, but that's how we get out of the editing sheet feature. So again, when we're doing this, now we can actually save this sheet. I assume that you would probably fill out a whole lot more of information down here and spend some time doing so that you don't have to do that every time. We want to save this as like our template now. So you can come up here to File and Save Sheet Format. And that's going to give you the ability to save this sheet. The instructions tell you to go ahead and either try to override the file that's already in SolidWorks. These are all the different types of formats that SolidWorks has saved in its own personal directory. Or you could do like I'm doing, which is this second little gray box, talking about just going to the file that I created for this assignment, which is the SolidWorks Lesson 3 drawings that I created. And I'm going to save this one in here as my sheet. That way, I have a template for all of my drawings going forward. Then in the next part of the instructions here. So beyond that, there's a lot of different options that you can change here when it comes to drawing. And just like the instructions say here, depending on what company you work for, they may have their specific standards on how they want some of these things to be laid out. So just be aware of how you get to these options and that you may need to change them depending on your own personal needs or the assignment needs or your job's needs. So we're out of the drawing, editing the sheet, but now we're still in like not actually a drawing yet. We're just looking at our template that we have open here, and it wants us to click on the little gear, which is the options button, which you can find here at the top of SolidWorks. And when you click on that, we want to click on the little tab. There's only two of them, so we're going to click on the Documents Properties tab. And under Drafting Standard and Annotations is where it wants us to go. Under Text, click Font. And then it's going to bring up this box, and it wants us to change the points to 12, and then click OK. Under Drafting Standard, click Dimensions, which is right here in the little tree again, and remove and trailing zeros to remove the trailing zeros from the dimensions displayed. So down here we have our little zeros field, our trailing zeros, and right now on our dimensions it's showing our trailing zeros, so we want to go to remove is what these instructions are talking about. But again, this is a whole bunch of options that you can come in and set up your own preferences or how your company wants things to be displayed as far as like whether the dimensions attached to your arrows are sideways or horizontal or vertical, stuff like that. So tons of options in here to come and play with. Also units, you can have units appear on your drawings, or you can have them not appear on your drawings, but definitely lots of options that you have to go in here and play around with if your company has specifics that you need to do for your drawings if this is required. But once you're done changing anything in here, like always, you would hit OK to make sure you save your changes. And then we're going to go to the next step in the instructions here. So now it actually wants us, we're ready for the part we're actually going to do a drawing of a part here. So it wants us to click on this Model View button, and we can find that under the Drawings tab here at the top, and then you can click Model View. And then I already have this folder open, but this is where and I have all these parts open in SolidWorks. So it's showing anything that I have open in SolidWorks right now, it already will have populated in this list for me. And that's why I started off this assignment with all of these parts already pre-loaded into SolidWorks. So that way I can actually start inserting the different parts here. So if you followed the SolidWorks instructions, it had you save it as Tutor 1, but Dr. Foley has us save the exact same part as the step 1 here. So when I click on that, I can hit this little arrow to go next. And then for orientation, click the front view. So orientation is talking about these different things here. And if you hover over each one, it tells you that that's like the front view, that button is the top view, the bottom view, so on and so forth. I have my cursor a little big, so your mouse pointer should be smaller, and when you hover over these, you should be able to see that name that's kind of hiding behind my cursor. But so you want to make sure you're on the front view, is the one it's telling us to do. Under the standard views, for orientation, select preview, which I already have checked here. So you want to make sure you could do the preview so you can see what's going on. I can see my picture. If the preview wasn't selected, I just have this empty box, which is kind of boring. It makes it difficult to actually visually see what's going on. And then we want to auto start projected view. So we're going to scroll down in our options here and make sure that this little box is checked for the auto start projected view, because that's just going to help us draw all our views all at the same time to make our life easy. And then under display style, hidden lines removed. So right now you can see the hidden lines, and these are just the different views of how the image will appear over here. The most common one is going to be this with no hidden lines and just the bare sketch of your part. And then it wants us to change the scale. So if we continue to scroll down in our property manager here, we can click on this use custom scale under the scale options here. And then you can set whatever custom scale you want. But the SolidWorks instructions are saying to change that to a value of 4. So now ours is looking very similar to what they have going on in the tutorial here. And then it wants us to move them into these places and stamp them into place like that. So the first one that you always want to do is this bottom left-hand corner one, which is your front view. And I'm just going to get my cursor into place where I want to stamp it. And when I left-click once, it's going to stamp that into place. And now as I move my cursor up, it's going to be tied to that. And I can left-click once to stamp that one into place. And similarly, I can move this one over to the right and left-click as well to stamp that one into place. Now that I have all 3 of mine in place, I'm going to go ahead and hit my little check mark over here because I am done moving them around. So this talks about the different ways that it does this. It's already set up to automatically do it to where this one is the top view and this one is the right view. But you can choose different options in here to where it is your preference as to how it actually places these. Maybe your company wants this one to be like the right view and this one to be the top view. So just make sure you understand which option you are in, is what this last little part of these instructions are talking about. And then we can start moving these parts around. So if I hover over it, you can see my cursor gets this weird like little plus or this T. And while it's like that, if I left click and hold, I can actually move these parts around in case I didn't quite stamp them into place where I wanted to. If I move this bottom left-hand corner one, it moves all of them, but then I can do the same thing to these ones, but it would actually just move that particular one that's tied to that corner one. So if you need to position these a little bit better, if you change your mind, they are not set in stone. You can still kind of move things around if you need to. And then when you're done, just make sure you hit your little green check mark. And that's what this step is talking about, and to just move them into this position. So I'm pretty close to what the instructions wanted there. Something like that. So then we're going to go to the next step. So the next step is going to have us actually add the dimensions to the drawing. So we were done putting those in, so it wants us to go to the Model Items button on the Annotations toolbar. So this Annotations toolbar right here, and here's the Model Items button. And when I hit Model Items under Source Destination, it wants me to select Entire Model. And then import items into all views. And we want to go ahead and select that little box. And then we want to make sure that we have this one checked, which is marked for drawing. There's a bunch of other options here, but this is the one that the SolidWorks tutorial is wanting us to do. And we also want to make sure that we check this little box right here to eliminate duplicates. And once we have all of that selected, click the check mark OK, and it automatically will populate all of our dimensions for us all over the picture. So now using my middle mouse button, I can scroll in and out to be able to manipulate these a little bit better because the instructions want me to make it look similar to that picture. So obviously, if you were to print this out, it's all mumble jumbled and hard to see what's going on. So you just want to use your scrolling capabilities here to grab the actual letters itself so that you can pull them out. And when you left click on it, hold it, and then we'll move it and let go of your left click to be able to stamp it back into place where you want it. So same thing, left click and hold, I can move around, let go of my left click, and it leaves it where I put it. And I'm going to similarly do that to all of these dimensions on here to make it to where they're not all on top of each other and it looks nice and professional. Because you want to be able to communicate this stuff is the point. It's why you would be printing it in the first place. So obviously, the more complex your drawing is, the more dimensions you can have. So this is where the bigger paper starts to come into play if you needed to be able to list way more complex geometries. There we go. And I think I have them pretty much all laid out. So then I hit my check mark. And now I'm done with this picture. So it wants me to go ahead and hit save. I think that Dr. Foley's instructions want us to save this as your last name underscore camera underscore, and we will call this one drawings. So then hit save. So we saved it according to the instructions. So now we're going to go to modify dimensions. So this part's pretty cool. So whenever you change something in SolidWorks, whether it's the part, so right now we have a part which is associated with an assembly, which is also associated with this drawing. And if we change something about the part in any of those 3 locations, it will automatically update the other 2 locations. So that's about to show us this here. I had already done this earlier, so it was originally 25 and I had changed it to 40. So in this tutorial, what I'll actually do is go from 40 back to 25, just so you guys can see me change it. But what we're doing in this drawing, we're just going to double click on the dimension. So whichever dimension you're wanting to change, I can double click on it. And we get this window that looks very similar to what we're used to seeing in SolidWorks. And I can change that dimension to whatever I see fit. So there I can change it to 25. And now I'm done dimensioning, so I hit my check mark. And now everything has our little stoplight on it again, which the stoplight in SolidWorks is up here, but it means rebuild. So I can either come click this button or simultaneously hold down Control and then press B on my keyboard. But I like to click, so I'm going to click this button, and it rebuilds everything, and I can see now here in my drawing that it changed those dimensions for me, and all my pictures were updated. So then I hit check mark, and I can, the system, sometimes it will ask you to save all of them right off the bat here, but it did not in my case, so we're good. So then we can come up here to our menu and find this Windows button to where we can go back to our assembly here. And now we can see that this one actually already changed as well. So it was originally 40 because I had already made the change when I was practicing this video. And now I was able to real-time change it back to 25. And I can similarly go back and look at this part. And I can see that the front of it, I can look at my extrude here, extrude 2. And I can tell that that one's extruded 25. So you can see the dimension there. Oops, now I changed it again. Let's put it back to 25. It's a weird value now. But there, so we can see it's 25. 25 everywhere. And now that we saw me do that, just to make sure I match the instructions, I'm going to go back to my drawing and I will change it back to 40 one more time because that's the way it wants it. And here's where it's rebuilding everything for me. So I could double click on it and change this value to 40 and hit check mark and then be done and hit rebuild. And now I'll go back to my camera one more time just to show you guys that it did indeed change it yet again. And now, like magic, it went back to 40 yet again. So now we're ready to continue in our tutorial. So now it wants us to make a drawing of this. So we're going to go back to our drawing sheet, which is right here. And then we can right-click anywhere on the drawing sheet and go to Add Sheet, which is right there. And now we have a new sheet, which is like page 2 of this drawing packet that we're making now. And now it's going to show us this standard 3-view button on the drawing toolbar. So I click on the drawing toolbar, and there's this standard 3-view button. I can click on that. And then in the property manager, make sure to pick the right one, which is this top one. So then I hit the check mark, and it automatically populates them in here. So then I can click on them to reposition them. When I get that little thing, just like before. Once I have them highlighted, I can come in here and change and hide the hidden lines. It wanted me to reposition them there. So let's actually change the scale too, because that looks like it's smaller, just like they did before. They did the 1:4. So we'll update that, and that's pretty close to where they are in there. Then I hit check mark to have those into place. And now we're going to add another view. So you can click the model view, which is on the drawing tab as well, and you can click model view. And we're trying to do this one again. So we hit our little right arrow, and this time we want to do this top right-hand corner button, which is an isometric view. And then we also want to pick one of our pretty blue buttons here. I like this first one because this is the colors with the lines. The second one is the colors without lines, and here I can show you the difference. So that one you could tell it has like softer edges because there's no hard lines on it. This one right here has the actual lines on it, and I just like the way this one looks better. So that's the one I can click over here into my picture, and now I'm done doing that, so I hit my check mark. And now here's where it tells you can print it. So just like any other thing you're used to printing, you can go to File and come down to Print, or you have a little printer button here that works the exact same way. And once you go to Print, File and Print, use the print range, select all sheets. So you want to make sure that you have all the sheets ready to print, and then click on Page Setup. And then here is where you can have it scale to fit whatever page that you're printing to. Scale resolution, scale to fit, and then you hit OK. And then if you have a printer, or if you'd rather it just go to a PDF, here's all your different printer options, just like you're used to seeing this interface in a lot of different other Windows applications. So you can print that way. I'm not going to print, but then make sure you save everything, because this is going to be part of what you need for Dr. Foley's assignment as well. So I will save this one as drawings, and I will add ASCII to the end because it's the assembly drawing. So then I hit save. And I'm going to save this one twice because Dr. Foley also wants it as an image, and SolidWorks makes my life easy because I can save things directly as a JPEG as well. And that will complete this tutorial for the drawings. Again, definitely, if you're not going to read any of the other assignments, I would make sure you go through and read this one, especially if you are going to be having to do a lot of drawings in your future, and you want to make sure you utilize all the features so you're not wasting any time doing repetitious tasks on these drawings. Thanks for watching.